Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Natasha and I would like to welcome you all to this new series on marketing cloud architecture and implementation strategies. So as part of this series, we're actually trying to bring you some of our esteemed experts in the marketing cloud community to share their experiences and recommendations when that's something that you should consider when designing and implementing marketing cloud solutions. Okay. Nowadays, we see a lot of demand for marketing cloud professionals, and especially as your teams grow. It's quite essential for them to skill up on these design best practices, and who best to hear it from other than some of our experts like Eliot here, right? So to kick off the series, we have Eliot Harper here, who's one of our top Salesforce MVPs and marketing champions. He's going to share his thoughts on data management best practices, and especially from a design and architecture perspective. So Eliot was very kind enough to take this session today. He's actually traveling. He was just traveling into Chicago today, I think just a few hours back. You can see he's very tired. So thank you, Eliot, for graciously volunteering to take the session. So without any delay, let me pass it over to you, Eliot. Go ahead, please.
Thanks. Yes. Yes. Hello and welcome from Chicago, where I just landed at 5 o'clock this morning after 27 hours of travel from Australia. So here attending connections. So really excited to be here. And excited to be presenting the session to you today. So thanks, Shabu, for the opportunity. So just a few words about me for those of you who don't know me. Let me see if this is working. There we go. So my name's Eliot, obviously, and I'm a marketing cloud technical architect at a company called Cloud Kettle. They're based in Canada, in Halifax, and I'm the only employee in Australia. So I've been with Cloud Kettle for over 2 years now. I've authored a few books on marketing cloud, including my latest book. This is the shameless plug on the right-hand side for the AMP-Script Guide. This is a comprehensive scripting reference manual for marketing cloud that I co-authored with Adam Spriggs. I'm a Salesforce MVP, and this award that I've received for the past 6 consecutive years. So it's kind of privileged to receive that recognition from Salesforce for my contribution to the community. I've been working with Marketing Cloud, for over 9 years now. And yes, I'm very active in the user community on different forums and regularly speaking at events. I also organize the Marketing Cloud developer user group, which we started back in 2015, and it's going strong today. And I assist work in many different areas. One of the ways is as a subject matter expert for marketing cloud certification development. So if any of you have taken, I don't know, say the consultant or developer certifications, I'm probably the person who wrote all those curly questions. So let's get on to the session today. We've got quite a lot of content to cover, as you can see from this list. So I think we'll just get straight into it. So firstly, I want to describe all the different data models in Marketing Cloud so you can understand their appropriate use. As Marketing Cloud has a number of different data models for storing data or attributes about a subscriber. The first of which is the all subscribers list. Now, this list is a master list of all people or subscribers who can receive email communications from your organization. And when an email is sent from the platform and the subscriber does not exist in this all subscribers list, then they're appended to it as a record. And the all subscribers list primarily has 2 main purposes. So firstly, identifies the status of the subscriber. So that is whether they've unsubscribed from receiving emails, or perhaps emails to their address are undeliverable, that is they're held, or they've been returned or bounced. And secondly, it can optionally be used to store data related to a subscriber through what are called profile attributes. So some considerations on the all subscribers list. So firstly, there are limited data types that are available when storing subscriber data as profile attributes. Specifically, you can choose from text, number, or date types. And these profile attributes actually define globally and apply to all the subscriber records in the account. So you can't use these attributes at a list or group level. And Furthermore, profile attributes only exist as a one-to-one relationship for a subscriber. Like, I can't go and use profile attributes to store any relational data, like purchase history, for example. And you also need to understand the behavior about how email addresses are updated in the all subscribers list, which I'll explain next. But before I do, let's talk about some best practices. So firstly, in the all subscribers list, you have a notion of a subscriber key. And this is a user-defined system of record. And it needs to use a unique identifier that persists over the subscriber's lifetime, like a customer number. So you shouldn't use an email address as a subscriber key value. There are many reasons that's a bad idea. And Salesforce advised could give that same advice too. So secondly, subscriber filters, which if any of you familiar with this feature, when you go and edit business units, you can see that you can filter which subscribers are available on business units through profile attributes. So don't go and use this feature to segment a large number of customers by business unit, particularly when multiple groups and conditions are applied to filter criteria. This directly impacts performance. Another best practice is that profile attributes are stored by the platform as a string type, irrespective of the data types assigned to them. And the way that it works is the platform casts them to their assigned type, like a date, for example, when required for like conditional evaluation or filtering. And in turn, this can impact performance. So, if you need to store this type of data, you should really consider storing non-text profile attributes like date, number, Boolean, or decimal values in data extensions rather than as profile attributes. So I mentioned before that about the email address, that the email addresses can change. Subscriber email addresses can change. And in most scenarios, the platform applies email address changes to the subscriber record at send time. But in certain scenarios, you may need to update the subscriber's email address in the all subscribers list before you send the email to ensure you're sending it to the correct address. So the following table I put together indicates the behavior when an email is updated on the all subscribers list and when it's not. Now, in this first two scenarios that we see here, where the send is initiated from Sales Cloud, the email address in the all subscribers list will be updated at send time, but based on the current email address for that lead on contact in the synchronized data extension. So you need to ensure that the synchronization interval is sufficient to allow for any email address changes on the lead on contact records to be reflected in Marketing Cloud. By default, this is every 15 minutes, but if you lessen this cadence, then you just need to remember that. So also for data extension based sends, the email address that's used to send an email to a subscriber will not be updated based on the value of your email address field in your data extension. Some assume that it will. Someone will say, hey, I've got a sendable data extension and I've got a subscriber key and an email address. But that's not the way that it works, because by default, the email address in a sendable data extension is only used when creating a new subscriber record at send time. So if your sendable data extension contains different email addresses for subscribers who exist in the all subscribers list, perhaps they change their email address, then you should consider sending that email from a journey. Alternatively, you can update the email address for these effective subscribers in the all subscribers list before you send the email, or you can actually contact Salesforce support and request the default behavior to be overridden, which will allow the email address in a sendable data extension to update the subscriber record at send time. But there are many caveats to that, and I kind of wouldn't recommend that approach, except in some very specific scenarios. Other points to note on this table, that if you're sending to a Salesforce audience from content builder send flow, that is, you may recall you can go and choose a Salesforce audience, and you can choose from a Salesforce report, a campaign, or a Salesforce data extension. Then the email address will be updated at send time. And also, when an email is updated from a triggered send, like a Sales Cloud triggered send, or an API triggered send, or a Journey Builder send email activity, which actually uses a triggered send definition behind the scenes, and the subscriber status is held, then it will automatically reset to active when the email is sent. For other scenarios, you'll either need to import a file to update these records in the all subscribers list, or typically configure an automation to update the email address and subscriber status. Otherwise, the status and the email address isn't updated, and your email is not going to be sent to these subscribers. So let's move on to, that's the all subscribers list out of the way. Let's talk about the other type of lists. So that's these legacy subscriber lists. So a list effectively is a collection of subscribers that belong to the all subscribers list. And these lists provide a very simple and convenient method for segmenting your audience and identify who should receive specific email communications, like a weekly newsletter or loyalty members. And lists are also used to store a subscriber's subscription status for a given list. And they can also be used to further segment your audience into filtered or random groups. But there are several considerations around a subscriber list. And the first is that lists can only contain subscriber records, not other data sets. Also, there's no overwrite option available for updating lists. You can know that you can only add or update subscriber records in a list. You can't delete them. And if a subscriber unsubscribes from the all subscribers list, then they're also unsubscribed from all lists and groups. But if a subscriber then decides to resubscribe and their status changes back to active on the all subscribers list, then they're not automatically resubscribed to the lists and groups they're previously subscribed to. Another consideration is that subscribers who unsubscribe from all lists will still have an active subscription status on the all subscribers list. So if they go into the preference center and say, oh, I want to opt out of these 6 lists, they can still receive commercial communications. A couple of best practices really for using lists. I'd say reserve the use of lists if you require simplicity in your data model over performance. And there are only really a few specific scenarios where you may want to use lists. Generally, I'd recommend avoiding it. It is more of a legacy feature, which in time I wouldn't be surprised if we see it phased out in the near future. Also, you shouldn't use lists to segment a large number of subscribers. For example, more than 500,000 records. So this is advice given by Salesforce. So the next type of data model in Marketing Cloud is one I'm sure that many of you are familiar with, and that is data extensions. So a data extension in Marketing Cloud is a relational database table that can be used to store any data related to a subscriber. And data extension fields are stored in a Microsoft SQL database. And they offer more flexibility and extensibility than lists, as they provide a relational data model and support a much greater number of data types. Data extensions provide permission-based access, where policies can be assigned to fields and also deletion. And data extensions can also selectively be shared across business units, actually a very granular level. Several considerations then for using data extensions. So the first is that they use what's called Transact SQL. It's the core technology behind SQL Server. And this has a row limit of actually 8,060 bytes. This isn't related to characters, it's very different. It's a byte count, and columns that don't fit within this limit are placed off row in a separate internal table. As a result, if you've got lots and lots of fields in your data extension, the platform has to execute multiple queries in order to return a single row for data extensions that exceed this row limit. So as a guide, you should work to limit the number of fields in the data extension to no more than 50, and try and keep your field lengths to 100 characters or less. Another consideration is that is referential integrity, which is the process of validating relationships between data extensions. So unlike Sales Cloud, referential integrity is not enforced in the platform. So what this means is that a record can be deleted from one data extension, even though its primary key is used as a reference in another data extension. Additionally, I just want to call out Matthias for posting this on LinkedIn a few days ago. A deletion or upsert activity can sometimes lock data extensions that use a date primary key or composite key. So that is one or more primary keys. And so once this happens, you actually can't make any further deletions or upserts on that data extension. The only solution is to clear all the records from the data extension, and then of course wait for yet another lock event to happen. So please avoid using date-based fields as primary keys. And you think, well, why would someone want to do that anyway? And I see a lot of people use composite keys in that it provides a very convenient way of searching for records in a data extension within Contact Builder. So in Contact Builder, you can go into data extensions and you can filter on a primary key. You can search for specific value. But no, don't do that for date fields. Now I'll talk about more about composite keys shortly, I think. I don't know if I do. Anyway, I'll talk about it now, and that is you shouldn't use, while I encourage you to use primary keys, you shouldn't, oh no, I do mention this further down, don't worry about it. So best practices. So firstly, lighten the load by only importing the data you need for your marketing communication. So often I see there's this temptation to load all my customer data. This like data fetish with Marketing Cloud users. Don't do it. So as far as data extension sizes go, really you want to avoid voluminous storage. I'd say don't, while you can import hundreds of million records, please try and limit this. The amount of records, I'd say it could be 10 million, it could be 100 million, depending on how many fields. But the more records you have, it's going to have a direct impact on performance. And the same design philosophy applies to Salesforce objects. It's really not designed for voluminous storage. So on data retention then, so when you create a data extension, you may observe that you have an option of defining how long the record should remain in that data extension. And when that period expires, then the record is purged or removed. So look, if you're not going to use order history data for the entire lifetime of a customer, like for the past 10 years, then don't store it. You may just only want to store the past 12 months. Also, assign appropriate data types to data extension fields. So what I mean by that is, if you have a date field, then store it as a date type. As well, data can be cast to a different type through queries or scripts. It really adds complexity and may impact performance. Next, assign an appropriate character length to text fields. Like if you know that a product code is always going to be 10 characters, then set the field length to 10 characters, as longer fields impose an overhead that isn't always necessary. And finally, I encourage you to avoid concurrent operations. For example, if you have an automation that updates a sendable data extension while an email is being sent, that's using that data extension, then, or perhaps you've got two automations that are updating the data extension perhaps at the same time because they're the way that they're timed to run. You want to avoid these kind of conflict scenarios. One bullet point that I thought was on here, it's not, was this use of primary keys. I encourage you to to use primary keys, as when you do so, the system creates an index, but avoid assigning too many primary keys or composite keys to a data extension, as when you do this too aggressively, it just creates a complexity on the index, which has a negative impact on performance. The next data model that I want to talk about in Marketing Cloud is the contact model. So this model is available through Contact Builder, and it unifies the data models across different channels. So while the all subscribers list that we talked about, this is for email, Contact Builder enables you to create relationships between this list and other channels like Mobile Connect or Mobile Push, in addition to data extensions. Now, firstly, I think it's important to explain what a contact is. Don't confuse it with contacts in Sales Cloud. A contact is essentially an abstract entity of whom a person represents. It's like an individual. And using Contact Builder, you can create cardinal relationships across these different data sources or attribute sets in the context of Contact Builder. And then you can use this contact data in journeys for real-time decisioning within decision split activities, or perhaps a goal or exit criteria. Like, you may want to eject a contact from a journey once they make a purchase. A few considerations for the contact model. So firstly, remember that the contact model is specific to each business unit. It can't be shared across business units. And secondly, from a contact, from a billing and usage perspective, it's different from a database contact. So a contact for billing and usage includes all contacts in the contact model, and also any individual who's received a message from any channel, even if they don't appear in the all contacts list. It also includes all your leads and all your users and all your contacts that in synchronized data extensions. That is, you're charged for storing these records in Marketing Cloud, even if you're not communicating with them. And many customers don't understand this and are frequently surprised when they receive a bill for overages on their anniversary of their subscription. So it's just, there's comprehensive documentation about, from a billing perspective, what a contact is. So I encourage you to be aware of this. And you can actually run a report from the report catalog on how many contacts that you have in your account. So I encourage you to keep an eye on that. So next, while synchronized data extensions are available in the contact model, and I'll show you that shortly, that is, you've got a corresponding attribute set that's created automatically when you synchronize an object as a data source. Please don't use them. Instead, you need to go and create an automation to populate a different data extension from that synchronized data extension. So why? Are you confused? Well, you probably are, but let me show you how and why. This probably makes sense. So I am, maybe we'll have a kind of quiz. You can kind of guess what happens here. So we've got a data extension, so we've got a journey here, and it's a very simple journey. And I'm using a Salesforce data as an entry event. So that is, when a new lead record is created, I'm going to inject them into this journey. And they're going to be routed after 3 minutes through one of these paths based on the status value for that lead record. Now, I'm looking up that status value on the lead record from the synchronized data extension. If we jump into Contact Builder here, you'll notice that in Data Designer, in this constellation view, you've got an attribute set that's magically created that contains all of your synchronized data extensions. In this case, I've got two, Contact Salesforce, and why wouldn't it let me collapse? The contact on there's the lead one too. So kind of that's very convenient, isn't it? So I'll tell you what I'll do. We'll go and we want to go and say perhaps send an email, and then we want to go and check on their status in Sales Cloud. And if they've been contacted, then we want to put them down a specific path. And so I've created this journey that does exactly this. Let's just crack open this I'm going to have to reload this, I think, because I created this journey a couple of hours ago, and it needs to re-authenticate. So let's do that. So let's have a look at this decision split activity I created earlier. And you view each of these in turn. It's all kind of all the same. You've got status is equals open hyphen not contacted. So this status is of the that attribute set that was automatically created when I synchronized that that data extension, or the object to a synchronized data extension. So kind of that makes sense, right? So may as well use it. What we're going to do is let's see actually what happens. Let me go into Sales Cloud now, and I'm going to go and create a new lead record, and we'll call this Miss Jennifer sample and sample co, and email address is jen@sampleco.com, and lead status will leave as open not contacted for now. I'm going to go and click save, and when I do, I've created that new lead, and they should be injected into that journey. So let's go and take a look. If we jump to history, we should get this in real time. We go to journey. There's my status change testing. We're now on version 2, and we can see, we'll see in a second that she'll be injected in. Just take a, I think a bit of a pregnant pause for it to, I expect it to be there already. But while we'll have to wait for that to come in first. Come on, status change testing. Let's go back to journeys. Status change running 02. Let me just, did it create that record? It did. Open not contacted. So maybe I'm just a bit impatient. Journey. Come on, this one, this one here. There we go, fantastic. So we can see that she's been admitted to the journey, and she's already at the 3-minute wait period. So I'm going to quickly jump into her record here. I'm going to go into details. I'm going to go and edit that record, and we're going to say that she is now contacted, or maybe converted even. So let's go and save that. Is that saved? Probably. Activity details. Converted, sorry. There's something hiding down here. There we go. The save button was masked by my Zoom toolbar. So I'm now going to rapidly jump across into Contact Builder, go into Data Sources, go to the Synchronize tab, and quickly force that synchronized data extension to refresh in the next 3 minutes. And so we'll just wait for that. Now that's syncing now. There are only 158 records in here, so it should just take a few seconds to refresh. And we'll just wait for that to happen. So while it's happening, I'm just going to jump across into here, subscribers, synchronized data extensions. And we'll get ready to take a look at that record. Of course, it, come on. Hasn't refreshed yet. Typical, isn't it? It just, I did it a couple of times earlier this morning. Oh, there we go, fantastic, that's done. So we caught it in time. We're going to jump back to Journey Builder, and let's see. I'm just going to change this version 1 to version 2. Fantastic, good. She's still in that wait period. It says 3 minutes. It's probably more like 4 or 5. It's kind of gets picked up after 3 minutes. So that's good. So we got some time. So what we would expect to see in our journey is Jennifer here. We can see that she's been injected into the journey, and she's now currently at this wait period. So now this converted, she's going to be routed down this branch, and I'm actually updating a data extension so we can see that value. Let's see what happens. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'm just going to jump back to my presentation, and talk about best practices, and then we'll come back and see what happened. Some best practices for the contact model. So firstly, when creating relationships between different attribute sets in Data Designer, link them using primary keys, as the platform creates an index based on these relationships, which does provide performance benefits. Also, your contact key values need to match the subscriber key values in Email Studio. So make sure that they're identical. They should be interchangeable. And avoid creating complex relationships with deep change of linked attribute sets, as this has a direct impact on performance, not only on platform performance in your data model, but also in the UI. I heard of one customer who created 1,200 attribute sets and wondered why he couldn't open them in Contact Builder, but that's a bit of an extreme. But try to resist the temptation to create these complex relationships. I'm just going to jump back to Journey Builder here. We'll jump into history so we get more kind of a better view of what's happening on version 2, and fantastic. So it's at that wait period. So so which path do you think that Jennifer has been routed down? Let's go and see, shall we? That's odd. She's routed down the remainder path. So she didn't meet any of these criteria. So what on earth is going on there? Well, I've actually created an identical journey that, rather than using that the synchronized data extension from that Salesforce attribute set, I'm instead using a different data extension. And anyway, and here you can see that it's actually routed down the correct path. So what's going on? Well, let's go back to Contact Builder and go to Data Designer and have a look. So the problem with this whole chestnut in here is that it uses a kind of, what's it called? It's this alternate key store to look at the relationship between the lead and contact records. This is weirdly enough, it's a one-to-many relationship. And as a result, you can't use it in a journey. So, I mean, this is a very simple use case. You'd have thought that, well, I've got a lead and something changes on that lead record. And so I want to go and, based on that real-time change, I want that to infer which path they're routed down. So how can we do this? Well, you have to go and create a new attribute set. And I hear you say, oh, okay, I know. I'll just jump and create a new attribute set, and I'll just go and link that synchronized data extension to my contact model. And the answer is, oh, we don't want to create new. I want link. It won't let me in here. I don't know why it's not linking. I'll try linking off this one here. The answer is, you can't. Synchronize data extensions can't be selected in Data Designer. You need to create another data extension with an automation that goes and updates that a specific value in that data extension, and then use that data extension in your contact model, which to me sounds just completely bizarre. I mean, I thought this is kind of the whole point of the Marketing Cloud, Sales Cloud integration. But just bear that in mind, that if you need to be looking at any lead or contact data, or in fact any kind of relational data for any other object for decision making while they're moving through the journey, that data is changing, then you'll need to go and set up an automation, a query activity to go and update a different data extension based on the synchronized data extension. I wish someone would explain why it's been designed that way. But I'm at Connection, so I think that's a pointed question I can go and track down the right person and ask them in the next few days. So next, the next type of data model I want to talk about is suppression lists. So a suppression list, just briefly in Marketing Cloud, is a list of subscribers in Email Studio that you don't want to receive your communications. And suppression lists can filter these subscribers out and prevent them from receiving emails. So you can add records or subscribers to a suppression list within Automation Studio from an Automation Studio import activity using the API, or there's an import wizard in Email Studio. And suppression lists can also be made public. So that is, if you're using, for example, the default subscription center, then subscribers can add themselves to these suppression lists. And they can also be, you can choose suppression lists in email activities in a journey. So yes, if you've got a group of records that you don't want to receive a specific email address, suppression lists are a very convenient way to suppress them from receiving the email. Another type of suppression list in Marketing Cloud is an auto suppression list. Now, auto suppression list is actually quite different. Auto suppression lists enable you to prevent specific email addresses, not subscribers, but email addresses from receiving email messages from Marketing Cloud. Like essentially, they're like this do not contact list for your emails. So the way that it works is that, as its name implies, it automatically suppresses email addresses from being sent an email without requiring the user to manually select a list when they go and configure the email or send the email. And you can create auto suppression lists from the admin section in Email Studio. And you can set these lists to suppress email addresses either by sender profile or at a send classification level. And also from parent business units, you can also assign an auto suppression list across an entire enterprise or to specific business units. Now, there are several use cases for auto suppression lists. I use them quite frequently. One of the more common scenarios is perhaps you're migrating from a different email platform to Marketing Cloud, and you want to ensure that email addresses who have unsubscribed from your previous platform aren't sent an email from Marketing Cloud. Or perhaps you want to ensure that dormant or cancelled customers don't receive an email. That's a great use case. Or another use case is to build in a fatigue rule for sending. Perhaps you don't want to over contact subscribers and you want to temporarily kind of suppress them. And then you can add them to an auto suppression list. And an auto suppression list actually behind the scenes is actually a data extension. You can interact with it in essentially the same way through a query activity. You can there's a technique using Query Studio or WS Proxy to actually go and set an auto suppression list as a target data extension in a query activity. One consideration, and I encourage you to check out my latest video, my LinkedIn post, or you can head over to YouTube channel at youtube.com/cloudkettle, is that when you create or delete an auto suppression list, it republishes all your triggered send and journey emails, even without adding a single record to that list. So that can be a good thing, very convenient way of globally updating all your content. But also it's kind of a consideration as well that if you've got kind of content in development that's already in emails that are used in journeys. Anyway, go and check out that. We're getting a bit off topic. Check out my video on that. Next, publication lists. So publication lists in Marketing Cloud help you manage how subscribers receive different categories of emails or SMS messages. Like when you send an email newsletter, you can associate that send with a corresponding publication list to identify the type of content in that email. And when you do this, the subscriber in your sendable DE will be appended to the list if they don't already exist in it. Now, these lists can be configured to be publicly available in the default subscription center, or perhaps you've created a custom preference center, which I've done before, and you can also retrieve the available public publication lists using the Marketing Cloud SOAP API. Now, the great thing about, I'll talk about that in a second. Firstly, the behavior is that when the subscriber opts out from a publication list, their subscription status is updated against that corresponding list. And the main advantage in using these lists over another method like storing preferences in a data extension perhaps, is that publication lists enable auditability. That is, I can see when a subscriber opted out from a list or opted back in. Using a data extract activity in Automation Studio, I can retrieve all this historical data, from my data warehouse. So look, in summary, publication lists provide this persistent audit trail. Whereas obviously data extensions are, any change is destructive, it kind of overrides that record when you update. Also, you can create shared publication lists to share a list with other business units in your account, as we see in the screenshot here. Do we see in the screenshot here? Yes, there we go. And control which business units have access to that list. As you can see here, you can really configure very discrete access permissions. So that concludes my section on the different data models in Marketing Cloud. Let's talk about data, and starting with data transformation and segmentation. Quite a lot to cover here, but Marketing Cloud includes Automation Studio, which, as you probably know, automates repetitive processes through a multi-step workflow. And typical applications for using Automation Studio include performing extract, transform, and load, or ETL processes to import file-based data from external systems to Marketing Cloud. And secondly, we can use the app to automate recurring marketing activities like sending monthly email newsletters to customers. A few best practices and also, I guess, considerations. So firstly, look, while Marketing Cloud enables ETL processing of data from external systems, please, as I said before, only import the data you need for your marketing campaigns and journeys. And I've seen many Marketing Cloud users who assume they should just import all artifacts of customer data across all their different systems, from the web analytics systems and e-commerce systems and much more. But the platform is not designed to be a replacement for a data warehouse. Data warehouses use specific hardware, software, and resources that are optimized for business intelligence and data analyst operations. As I mentioned earlier, Marketing Cloud isn't a suitable platform for storing and querying voluminous data sets. As large data sets in email marketing platforms, they just really don't scale well. That's a fact. And furthermore, becomes this reliance on SQL modeling, which, as you probably know, requires considerable expertise and effort. It inherently lacks flexibility and ultimately limits the scope of marketing campaigns, projects, and budgets. So we end up with this, series of large schema-dependent data sets that can't easily adapt to new data models or segmentation rules without serious effort and skills. So, on segmentation, while you can create sophisticated data segmentation models using query activities and Automation Studio, if you really have complex segmentation requirements, or you're working with very large data sets and importing from dozens of different platforms, then I really recommend you look at a CDP for data orchestration and segmentation. So, while you can do this in Marketing Cloud, SQL is an extensive declarative language. It's a specialist discipline that requires not only familiarity with a language vocabulary, but also knowledge of optimized database design and query design patterns. And ultimately, the end users of Marketing Cloud should be marketing professionals. If you have dozens of different data sets, then a CDP is really optimized for voluminous storage at scale, while it also does things like handling identity resolution and through deterministic or probabilistic matching models. And it really, I guess, essentially puts segmentation back in the hands of marketers where it really belongs. So think of Marketing Cloud as one platform in your MarTech or marketing technology stack that includes best-of-breed platforms that are fit for purpose. So rather than Marketing Cloud, it certainly isn't a silver bullet. Additionally, please don't try to use Journey Builder. And let me click on this link here. There we go. Sorry, I've lost my tab now. Please don't try to use Journey Builder as an ETL tool either. And I've seen many Marketing Cloud users who say, oh, this is a very convenient ETL tool to bulk upsert object records in Salesforce. Like this example. This is a live customer example, actually. So while Journey Builder includes different activities for creating and updating records in Salesforce objects, any corresponding operation in Salesforce is subject to Apex governor limits. And this ensures that processes don't monopolize shared resources in a multi-tenant environment. So if you're using Journey Builder to create or update large record volumes in Sales Cloud, then you may quickly experience these limits, which will not only cause the upsert operation to fail, but also impact other processes in that same transaction, like Apex triggers. And additionally, we've got an added complexity of object record locking, resulting in Salesforce activities timing out in a journey, depending on the lock intention of the object. Look, in short, Journey Builder is not designed as a tool for bulk loading data in Sales Cloud. If you have a requirement to load data from Marketing Cloud to Sales Cloud, then you really should consider using an integration platform like MuleSoft, or if you really want to do this from Marketing Cloud and technical users, you're a technical user, then you might want to write a script activity in an automation that uses the Salesforce bulk API to upsert records, which should be on his blog, Tidbits for You, is a detailed post of the procedural steps how to go and use the Salesforce bulk API for Marketing Cloud. It's a great read, should you need. Next, I want to talk about some data encryption options. Just one second. So, I thought I did. Okay, data encryption options. So just one second. I apologize. I had a few different notes that I wanted to talk about on this slide. And now they've just mysteriously vanished. So let me try and get them back. Otherwise, I'll just talk to it off the top of my head, and it looks like I have to do that. Sorry. So we've got a few different options for data encryption. Let's see how I go. So you've got field level encryption. So field level encryption stores, encrypts data at a field level, as the name implies. And what this means is that if you go and have a look at a data extension containing field level encryption, you won't see the actual data. You'll just see an encrypted string. I know working with one customer, they implemented this because they had an issue with staff taking PII data, and when they left, the customer data went with them. So that's why they implemented FLE. Then we got TDE, which provides this encryption at rest option, where the data is encrypted on the physical hardware. So if someone was to break into the data center and steal the server, they can't do anything with it. So you may want to consider transparent data encryption, where you have those kind of legal requirements, such as under GDPR. Encryption on a shared database is similar to transparent data encryption, but rather than having your own dedicated database, it's shared with other customers on that same in that same stack. Next, we have tokenized sending. So the way that tokenized sending works is that rather than storing all your customer data in data extensions, you can store it in your own, say, platform or data warehouse outside of Marketing Cloud. And when a message is sent via an email or SMS, the platform will make an API call to your platform and exchange a token. A token is this obfuscated representation of an email address or phone number, and exchange that for the actual data. I guess the consideration here is that that it only occurs at send time, so you can't go and use this for real-time decisioning in a journey. That is, when a contact arrives at distance state activity, it can't go and make an API call to go and get that data in real time. Another encryption option is file transfer. And many people say, oh, well, why do we need to encrypt files with file transfer? Because, we send files via SFTP, and SFTP provides data encryption, but file transfer encryption provides just a different level, and it serves actually a very different purpose. So if someone was to get access to your SFTP credentials, they can't get access to the actual data. They can only see a PGP file as it's decrypted in a safe house. So I would recommend encrypting and decrypting files using PGP when exchanging data with Marketing Cloud. So all of these, apart from the last one, these are additional extras, so they come with a price tag. But PGP and GPG encryption is really regarded as the best practice for data exchange. So next, gosh, we're flying through this. So we've got plenty of time for questions, which is great. But I want to finish off my session today by mentioning a few best practices on data management. So this is actually a very lengthy topic, which really deserves a session on its own. But I thought I'd just helpful to call out a few of the main best practices. Firstly, exporting data. So I recommend regularly exporting your email engagement data to a data warehouse. If you have requirements to perform things like deep analytics or perhaps historical reporting on customer engagement. And the data extract activity in Automation Studio includes a tracking extract data type, which is really purpose-built for this requirement, enables you to easily extract data from many different data views and more, including kind of not sent, on a 24-hour rolling range. So it's kind of designed for this purpose. So while, we're saying, well, why would you do this when the data is available in Marketing Cloud? And it is, it's actually technically available on the platform right back to account inception. And in theory, yes, I mean, I could go and run these data tracking extracts and store them in data extensions. It just can quickly amount to voluminous sizes, if you're sending hundreds of millions of emails, and it's difficult to extract the insights that you need from it. So it becomes actually quite unusable. So as I mentioned earlier, Marketing Cloud is not a data warehouse, so please don't treat it as such. Another best practice is that you should consider backing up critical data. Like if I have a data extension that's capturing leads perhaps from a cloud page, then I'd recommend ensuring that you have a regular backup of this data. So the problem in Marketing Cloud is that it's all too easy to completely delete or modify data with the click of a button. Perhaps someone accidentally clicked on the delete all contacts, or maybe just deleted the data extension because they misread the name. Or perhaps you got some kind of a issue with a query activity, some rogue query activity that's updating fields incorrectly, and when they do, it creates kind of this irreversible effect. So use a data extract activity to export this data to a delimited text file and perhaps store it in a data lake or data warehouse. Get it outside of Marketing Cloud. Just think of backing up files just as you would back up files on your computer. And finally, another kind of key best practice is to, as I mentioned before, apply data retention policies to data extensions that don't require perpetual storage. Now, I've seen many accounts that just don't do this. They've got sendable data extensions for newsletters they sent 5, even 8, 9, 10 years ago, or maybe old journey data from contacts who rejected in like 3 years ago. And there are really 2 reasons why you want to automatically delete this data. Firstly, from a legal compliance like GDPR, for example, and other emerging regulations, these regulations or GDPR has a storage limitation principle that states organizations should not keep personal data for longer than needed. And another reason that you want to delete this data is that if it's no longer needed in your marketing programs, like if I've got, say, customer transaction history from over 3 years ago, where say I've got every time the customer makes a purchase, I'm storing it to maybe a transactions data extension, then just don't keep it. As if you retain it, it's just ultimately going to impact the performance of your marketing automation processes on the platform. As that data extension continues to grow and grow and grow. Well, that kind of concludes what I was that I wanted to cover today. Like I said, this is actually a very comprehensive topic, and I feel I've really just kind of scratched the surface of some kind of key areas you want to consider. But I hope that you'll learn something new. And now we've got plenty of time for questions. So I'll just open it to, how do you want to do this, Shabu? Use the chat window, do you think? Or maybe you can deflect questions to me or something. I see there are some great questions coming in.
Yeah, Natasha has already listed down some of the questions, so she can.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, go ahead, Natasha, please.
Are you there, Natasha?
Are you able to hear her?
I can't, no.
Oh, okay.
Should I?
No, I mean, I believe she was trying to speak. Yeah, go ahead, Natasha. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So thanks, Eliot, for that amazing session. We always learn something new when you speak. We've got 10 questions coming so far. So
sure.
Obviously keep an eye on the time. We probably won't be able to get through all of them. They're great questions. And the ones we can't get to, Shibu and I were discussing on the side, we'd probably just put them on a quick document and you can get to them whenever you have time, and then we'll share that with the participants.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay,
awesome. So first question, how are auto suppression lists updated?
Yeah, great question. They can either be updated, so typically they're updated through an import activity. So an import activity, you can select auto suppression list as a destination. But in doing so, you have to create this multi-step workflow. I encourage you to head over to mc.chat, where I've created a 2-minute video that shows you how you can update an auto suppression list just in a single activity, in a single query activity. An easy way to do this, if you have Query Studio, is you can go and create a query, and when you go and save that query, you can choose the auto suppression list as a target data extension. Alternatively, you can use WS Proxy to go and update a query activity as a target data extension. Remember, these auto suppression lists, they're just data extensions. They're effectively under the hood, but they kind of appear differently. So, but if you want to use kind of out of the box, it's by an import activity.
Thanks, Eliot. I hope that answered your question. I've lost track of who asked that, it goes far back, and we've got more questions coming in. As soon as I said we've got limited, we've got about 20 more questions coming.
Yes, okay, bring them on.
And next question, in a custom attribute group, if an attribute set is linked to the contact key using the one-to-many cardinality relation, the behavior is wonky. Any thoughts on why?
Saw, right? Yeah, well, which we just saw, right? I mean, it begs the question, if you can create these one-to-many or many-to-many or many-to-one relationships, and it doesn't work in Journey Builder, well, why? Why do we have this? And it's a simple answer. The answer is that it was really created for Audience Builder. Audience Builder relied on this many-based relationships. It was inherently kind of fundamental to its dimensions model. Audience Builder has kind of obviously gone away. two things. You can use one-to-many relationships with attribute to attribute comparisons. So that is, if I have an attribute in, let's just say, for example, I've got it's a post-purchase program, and I've got like a purchase ID, and I've got kind of another synchronized. I've got a data extension containing all my purchases. So you've got this one-to-many relationship. Then that will work if you can take the attribute from that journey data and compare it with the attribute on in the other data extension. So in that kind of one-to-many data extension, you can actually visualize this kind of one-to-many relationships as well from the somewhat discarded interface. You know, how you can click on a contact and see all the associated attributes. Look, it's just a really kind of confusing feature. And like I said, primarily it was created for Audience Builder, but still it's the behavior, just as we saw, it's just many people assume that they can use one-to-many relationships, and it does actually warn you whether you're using journey data, so whether you're using creating a goal or exit criteria or decision split. You all see this warning, this yellow strip about it may have undesirable effects. Yeah, it's something I think Salesforce need to address, because it's as we see, doing even something simple, you know, just like even doing something that shouldn't be a one-to-many data relationship, like updating a lead, or just checking like a status of a lead. It doesn't work. So as a rule of thumb, I generally just normalize everything to kind of one-to-one data model when using journey data, or just a kind of when I need contact data in journeys.
Yeah, and Eliot, do bring that up to Salesforce when you meet them.
Yes, I will. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Question number 3. How will shared publication lists behave with unsub from this business unit config?
I have no idea. I've never tried that, to be honest with you. Well, I'll take a stab. I think that, yeah, it's a good question. Unsub from this business unit only. I think that the unsubscribing is separate, so that will unsubscribe them from the all subscribers list in that business unit. But they can still, yeah, I'll have to go and validate that. I'm kind of guessing, but it's, yeah, I guess that it will unsubscribe them from, yeah, I'm not sure actually. It's a great question there. Someone says in the parent it will unsub them from both BUs, but yeah, we need to encourage you to go and check that before.
Yeah, and we'll get back to that as well in that quick document. So when using a custom preference center, how do you recommend incorporating publication lists?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question, and I actually just use WS Proxy and with server-side JavaScript. You know, you've got full access through the SOAP API. You can go and retrieve. You want to look for all of the public, say, publication lists, and I actually retrieve the name and the description, and for each subscriber, you can get whether they've opted and opted out of that list, and pre-check checkboxes. But that's really it's the only way. Certainly, it's more of an advanced technical topic. If someone has the requirement, you can schedule a call with me at mc.chat, and I can kind of walk you through the code. But it's yeah, it's very straightforward for someone who is experienced in working with server-side JavaScript.
Thank you.
It's also technically it's possible with AmScript as well through the API functions, but this it's a highly kind of verbose approach I'd recommend server-side JavaScript is a much more elegant way of building that.
Awesome. Next, is it best practice to use Automation Studio to copy the synchronized data extension and then only use the duplicated Salesforce data extension for queries and decisions in a journey?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I don't think you've got a choice. If you want to go and use a, I mean, as we saw, we can't go and choose a synchronized data extension in Data Designer, so you don't have a choice. You have to go and duplicate it. I would recommend of just going and don't go and duplicate the entire synchronized data extension in all its fields. Just create a data extension for that journey with the fields that you need. Create kind of skinny tables rather than, say, having 200 different fields and you only need 3 of them. But yeah, we really don't have a choice. But you have to duplicate that in automation, which kind of annoys me because an automation can run every hour, but synchronized data extensions every 15 minutes. So we still got this near time data, and often that with many journeys you want this to be kind of real time or as close as possible, but because we can't use these synchronized data extensions, we can't do that.
Thank you, Eliot. How are you doing with how many more can you take?
Yeah, keep them coming.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so next, about import activities to update data extensions. Are there any good practices that we can follow to build the files? Currently, they're struggling with handling a CSV file that marks invalid field count, but when they open it in Excel and upload it again, Marketing Cloud gets it perfectly.
So it sounds to me it's like it would be a UTF issue if you're opening it in Excel and saving it. So you might want to. There is, I think it's through the file transfer, or there are various, I can't remember which activity it is, but actually go and convert files from UTF-8 to, so you need to identify the file encoding in short, because it sounds to me like maybe it's UTF-16 or kind of something else, but that's going to be a problem. But I would have a look at whatever is generating these files and see whether you can set the file encoding option. I've gone and maybe Shubha, you can jump in here, but you know what I'm talking about, how you can go and change the encoding.
The file convert option in data extract.
It's only on extract, is it?
It's on.
But
yes,
it's a data extract activity. Maybe you get imported and then extract. Oh no, it's not going to work, is it? You probably just need to. Sounds to me like you need to fix it upstream. Just get good data coming into marketing. You need to get the data into Marketing Cloud in the format that's required. And again, it will just be.
The good thing is you can still do it on the FTP using the data extract activity.
Okay.
Before you bring it into the safe house, so you can actually do the file convert on the FTP folder, and then you can bring it into the safe house using import. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, but that file convert option, which is available in a couple of different places. There's one that works and one that doesn't, and I can't remember. One comes kind of in a data extract activity, and anyway, but yeah, you can definitely do that for one of the activities.
Next, where does Marketing or MC Shield fit into encryption?
Yeah, I've heard this term MC Shield thrown around, and my understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just a brand name for encryption on a shared database. That it was kind of rapidly put together at when GDPR was coming out, and I had a customer at the time 3 years ago say, "Oh yes, we're getting Marketing Cloud Shield," and but yeah, it's basically TDE on a shared database. So it's you have all the benefits of encryption at rest for compliance, but as a fraction of the cost. So yeah, that's what it is.
Okay. Somebody's asked what the difference between suppression lists and exclusion lists is, and when you should use which.
Yeah, well, an exclusion list is effectively, and Shivu, just jump me in if I'm wrong, but it's like a data extension. A suppression list is where the subscriber can actually opt into that suppression list. When should you use either? So firstly, if you're using journeys, you can't use exclusion list. You have to use suppression list. You can't go and select an exclusion list. You can choose you can write an exclusion script, but you'd use exclusion list like if you're using the content builder send flow and you want to go and drag a sendable data extension from an audience that you want to exclude. Yeah, if you're really using A, journey-based sends, or B, want to create a kind of use the default preference center or custom preference center and give customers an option to be added to that list, then you should be using a suppression list.
Thanks, Eliot. Somebody's asked if a .db file can be generated for data in Marketing Cloud.
No, I don't think so. There's not a. I mean, there are some. There is a kind of extensive list of data extract types, and that's not one I've come across before. So that's a kind of question for Salesforce support. But no, I don't believe so. I've seen kind of lots of custom extract data types, but not that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. How to manage one to multiple relationships in Journey Builder, and I believe we've touched on a bit of this earlier, like one user having multiple cards. I'm not sure what cards is, but probably attributes. How to track each card record in Journey Builder.
Yeah, like I said before, you can't really. You can either, in some use cases, you may be able to use attribute-to-attribute comparison, depending on what data you're comparing it with, what your model looks like. Otherwise, you have to go and write a query to go and normalize it to a one-to-one data view. Yeah, there's no, you can't basically. You have to. They're the only two options: attribute to attribute, or write a query to go and normalize it. So for example, if I've got a subscriber record and they've purchased, their favorite color is and it's a favorite color, and it's blue, green, orange, and they've got 3 favorite colors, kind of this one-to-many. You can come up with creative ways. I could write a query to go and concatenate these and pipe delimit them. And then in my decision split activity, if this color contains the word blue, then that's kind of one approach. But yeah, you just have to get a bit creative.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that the same way as well, like outside of Journey Builder, and gotten creative with the functionality or the lack thereof within. Next question. Can you expand on contact builder relationships where one-to-many scenarios exist? For example, e-commerce customer has multiple transactions and you want to create a decision split based on if any of those orders were returned.
Well, like I said, the only way that you can do that is through a attribute-to-attribute comparison. And we can go and have a look at it if you want, how we're doing for time. And probably we should, because this has come up lots of times. Let's kind of jump on. I'll go and share my screen. Share. So we're just in Journey Builder now. I haven't gone. Let me just create a new version of this journey here. We'll jump into this decisions bit, and we'll see. Again, I don't know what's in my attribute set, so we'll see how we go. But if I go and edit this, open not contacted. So you've got like add an attribute to compare. So we can go and perhaps in our journey data that I've got, yeah, it's status is equal to lead ID or something like that. So if let's say in my entry source data extension, I've got something called, imagine this kind of purchase ID or something, and this relates to this other data extension with a one-to-many relationship where for that given contact, they've got multiple records. Then you could go and use this attribute to attribute comparison, depending on your use case. Shibu, have you used attribute to attribute comparisons quite a lot, or just out of curiosity?
Not much, Eliot. Yeah, no,
yeah,
not too much.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's like I said, it's just problematic. And I typically what I do is to for these type of scenarios, we have a look at either have a look at the last transaction when they're injected into the journey, and yeah, otherwise, yeah, you just use again, if you've got a purchase ID in your journey data extension, then you can go and a matching value that exists in a data extension in your contact model, then you can use this attribute to attribute comparison. So I think that's a good use case for that one. But again, if you've got problems using the questions, I encourage you to schedule just a call with me on mc.chat, and I'd love to kind of walk you through that, and we can have a look together.
Okay, ready for the next?
I've mentioned it a few times. Yeah, sure. And just go down the bottom, schedule a call. Yes. Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one. Is there a backend configuration to modify the behavior of email update in Journey Builder? I recall Journey Builder always uses the email address from SFDC when I worked at my previous company. But in another Marketing Cloud instance I'm using now, I found Journey Builder respected the email address in all sub instead of what's in SFDC.
No, I mean, like I said in that slide, it should, if you're in Journey Builder, because it's using a triggered send definition, and it will update the subscriber. Let me just show you. I'll go and share my screen again. Two things. Share. Firstly, Journey Builder by default will always update the email address, and let's go back to that that specific slide I had on here. Let's take a look at this. We can see in Journey Builder, it just uses the event source data extension, or you just have to go and check for your cancel this under the journey settings. Summary done. Get out the way just 1 second. Done. Click on the cog icon, go to journey settings, and whatever you've gone and selected, either the entry source or using it from the contacts, but it will always be updated by default, just whatever's in that entry source data extension. But optionally, you can choose a different email address from the contact model. Yeah, it doesn't sound quite right to me, because it won't. There shouldn't be a scenario where it's ignoring that and just using the email address and all subscribers. There are only kind of 2 scenarios that that occurs, or 3. That's Automation Studio send activity if you're doing a user initiated send, or obviously the content builder send flow, kind of manually sending an email. But again, if you're still stuck, maybe we can go and look at it together. Feel free to reach out.
Couple more to go. Is duplication of sync data extension an approach to take when it will be used for AMP script? Or I guess, do we duplicate, the better way of phrasing this would be, should we duplicate the sync data extension when we have to utilize it for AMP script?
No, so certainly I wouldn't. There's no need to. Yeah, I mean, you can, two things. I mean, firstly, a synchronized data extension is just a data extension with AMP script. You just use it just to look up the synchronized data extension. You wouldn't need to duplicate it. And remember, with AMP script, we've got the added functionality where you can go and use retrieve Salesforce objects to go and get values from the Salesforce object in real time and not use a synchronized data extension. But please don't use that in an email send, as it's not very performant. I remember one customer tried doing that and said it would take 1.5 years for the email to finish sending to a million contacts. But I mean, it's very, you're using kind of cloud pages that do that all the time. But yeah, so AMP script, you've got two options: just go directly with a synchronized data extension, or in some cases use retrieve Salesforce objects.
I've got a question just on chat from Dan. Which is better? Okay, which is better, sync data extension or retrieves Salesforce?
It depends. So there are pros and cons for both. So retrieve Salesforce objects, I typically go and use it on cloud pages where I need this data in real time, not just near-time data that could have been refreshed 15 minutes ago. Perhaps maybe, let's go this scenario. Perhaps you're using the kind of a custom preference center and you want to go and retrieve that record, but they don't exist yet in the synchronized data extension because they've been injected into, a new lead's been injected into a journey. They received an email and 15 minutes hasn't yet lapsed, so it hasn't had a chance to synchronize. So if you need that data in real time, then such as that scenario, then definitely use retrieve Salesforce objects. Where I wouldn't use it, don't use it in an email unless you've got a kind of contacts trickling through a journey, perhaps, because like I said, it's just not very performant. It just takes a couple of seconds to go and retrieve that data. Yeah, for first kind of sending a scale, you should look at the synchronized data extension.
Going along the same theme of performance and which is better, we have another one. Which performs better to load data, like a load high volume of data, overwrite or add only?
Yeah, good question. I haven't timed it. I mean, I would assume overwrite, but I haven't done any benchmarking. I don't know whether you've got any insights in that.
Probably because it doesn't use the primary key checking, Eliot. I'm guessing override as well. So.
Well, yeah. Yeah, because it would have to, add has to go and check to see whether you could create a duplicate. But yeah, I'd say override would be quicker.
How are we on time? So probably two quick questions.
Sure.
In one-to-many relationships, if we normalize data or do standard sampling, won't there be bias?
Can you say that question again, please?
So in one-to-many relationships, if we normalize data or do standard sampling, won't there be bias?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I'm sorry, maybe I'm hearing it wrong. Shibu, you?
No, I didn't.
No, this is
quite
how
get it.
It's by Rizai, and Rizai, if you want to add some more context around that or get yourself off mute, that would help.
Sure.
And until that, I'll just go ahead with the last question, and then there's a couple more left which we'll get to on Quip.
Yeah.
how is a creation deletion of lists republish the TS and J emails? Are there any other hidden impacts? Republish, how is it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you go and create an auto suppression list, and just to recap, when you create an auto suppression list, all of your triggered send and journey emails are republished, which is wonderful. Let's say it can be wonderful. Let's say I've got a global content block in an email, and I've a global footer content block. So I've updated the footer with perhaps a new address. And now I've got 300 emails across journeys and triggered sends that I need to manually update. Simply the action of just creating an auto suppression list will republish all of your triggered sends based on the send classification that you went and set in that auto suppression list, just like in a few clicks. The downside of this behavior, though, is that maybe I've got some email content, a content block that's under development, and it inadvertently introduces that new version of the content into emails. So are there any other repercussions? None that I can think of. I mean, it's a weird behavior. I think it's due to the way that it's kind of for snapshotting and performing optimization that yeah, the only repercussion would be that, if you've got content that is being updated, which you didn't want to be republished just yet. It's yeah, and for those of you unfamiliar with this, I've got a video on that. You can head over to youtube.com/cloudkettle and go and see it. It's but yeah, there's no other side effects that I'm aware of.
And with that said, I think I'm going to give you a breather for a couple of minutes. Shibu, do you want to share your screen so we can introduce the next session, or would that be Eliot?
No, actually, I don't have the slide right now. That's fine. I think we'll just wrap up. For now, we'll just mention Matthew's session for now. Yeah.
Yes. So I have the screen right here open in front of me. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep, we can. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Eliot, for sharing your experience with us. You are the godfather of Marketing Cloud, like I jokingly tell everyone, and we should hear everything you have to say, because you've done it all, you've seen it all, you've experienced it all, and we learn from you all the time. So thank you for spending this time with us. And for all of you on this call and those who've dropped off, we've got a great session coming up next by Mateusz Dabrowski. His session is on June the 14th, so next week on Tuesday. We know you're joining from all over the world, so we're hoping this timing suits everyone. It's at 9 a.m. EST, 10 p.m. GMT, 8 a.m. Central. And he will be talking about architecting web solutions in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Very similar to today's session, where he will speak, we'll follow up with questions and answers, and everything we can't get to, we will share on Quip, including a recording of the session. So with that said, thank you for spending this hour and a half with us. Thank you again, Eliot. Have fun in connections, and do ask Salesforce a lot of tough questions. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Eliot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, guys. Thanks, Elliot.